In this video, you're gonna learn 2 ways in which you can make your photos pop using Adobe Lightroom. Hello everyone, this is Ernesto with Aftershoot, but in this video, we're not gonna talk about Aftershoot, but don't worry, that's coming back in the following videos. What I'm gonna show you today is 2 tricks I constantly use to make my images stand out. Now, it's all based on the concept that our eyes are drawn into the area of the image that has the brightest elements. It works like that on film, painting, and of course, photography. So in theory, if our subject is the brightest element in our whole photo, then our photo is gonna stand out. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so we have this image I shot this weekend in an event. I already called it using Aftershoot, and I edited the photo using my own personal AI profile. So what to do now? If I were to brighten the whole image, this would be the result. As you can see, my subject is in fact getting more attention, but I am also losing the background. What's happening here is I'm giving the screen, which is already a source of light, more exposure. And by giving the screen more exposure at the same time I'm increasing the exposure in my subject, then nothing is jumping out. So what to do? Here's the trick. Instead of increasing the exposure on the whole image, what I'm gonna do is use the automatic subject selection tool and increase the exposure only on the subject. This way my subject, the brightest element in the image, is jumping out and is getting separated from the background, which remained with the same exposure that it had in the beginning. Basically what I'm doing here is I'm getting 2 elements with the same exposure and increasing the exposure only in one of the elements, so it's gonna jump out over the other one. Like I explained in the beginning, our eyes are gonna be drawn into the area of the image that has the brightest elements. In this case, it's gonna be the subject. So here's how it would look without the mask, and here's how it looks after we've used the mask. As you can see, there's a good difference. But I told you in the beginning of this video I have 2 tricks to make my images pop. I just showed you the first trick. It is to increase the exposure only on the subject. But what happens when we cannot increase the exposure of the subject? Let me show you. Imagine we have this photo here. If I were to select the subject and increase the exposure of the subject, I might end up overexposing the element. So what am I supposed to do? Let me show you. Instead of selecting the subject, what I am going to do is I'm going to select the background. And instead of increasing the exposure of the background, I am going to decrease the exposure of the background. You see, there's 2 ways to make my subject the brightest element in the image. I can either increase the exposure only on the subject, or I can decrease the exposure of the background, thus making my subject the brightest element in the whole photo. Now I'm just gonna correct a couple of things here so it looks a little more natural. And voila, my subject is now the brightest element in the whole photo. Let me show you the difference of how we started. The subject and the background are both bright, so I couldn't brighten the subject, and this is what we did after we decreased the exposure of the background. The background became darker, thus making our subject the brightest element in the image. So there you go. These are 2 ways in which you can make your photos pop using Adobe Lightroom. Like, comment, and share with anyone you think might find this information useful, and don't forget to follow Aftershoot in all of our different social media platforms. Thanks for watching.